everyone, and welcome back to the Cat Store channel with me, Dr. Luqman, bringing you another cat topic of interest. And today we'll be continuing our cat nutrition series with another informative short video, which you need to know before we jump into the kitchen and start cooking or preparing raw or semi-raw meals for our cat. Now, today's video is going to be very interesting because we're going to talk about in what circumstances should you not consider a raw meat diet for your cat. Yes, there are instances where this is not recommended, and if you or your cat fall into one of these categories, then we do not recommend raw meat diets for you or even homemade diets for you, depending on the extent of how much raw you're going to put in the side diets, for reasons we will explain. Without further ado, let's get into our video. But first, this is your friendly reminder, guys. Please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe to us. And of course, we welcome your comments. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, there are certain scenarios or certain situations where you would actually not want to put your cat on a raw diet or a homemade diet, even one that is cooked. The main scenario or situation where this would be of very important concern is if you are pregnant, if you're trying to get pregnant, or if you think you are pregnant, but you're not yet sure. So essentially, women who are trying to conceive, have conceived, or are not sure about their status as far as conception is concerned, are advised to stay away from raw meats, and this includes putting your pets away from a raw meat diet during the course of your pregnancy or during the course of your planned pregnancy. So for example, if you're planning to get pregnant in a few months, or if you're planning with your partner to get pregnant, it is time to either not put your pets on a raw diet, or if they are on such a diet, is to transition them to preferably a commercial diet. The reason this is so is because the CDC cautions against raw diets or having raw meats around the house when pregnancy is concerned, especially with cats around, because cats are actually the primary reservoir and the primary shedder of a parasite known as Toxoplasma gondii. And the disease this causes is toxoplasmosis. It is relatively harmless for almost all cats, and it is pretty much guaranteed that pretty much any cat would get this parasite at least once in their life. It's not a big deal for cats at all. They, unless a cat is severely immunocompromised, they usually handle this parasite, without any signs most of the time. But it is interesting for pregnant women or those who are trying to conceive, because if you contract this parasite while pregnant or while trying to conceive, it can actually influence negatively your child in utero as they're developing. And oftentimes babies with toxoplasmosis acquired from the mother while she was pregnant may first appear normal, but then have severe issues as they grow older. So this is the primary reason why, or the primary scenario where you would actually not want to put your cat on a raw meat diet. A second scenario is where you don't know your cat's health status. Now, if your cat has an underlying health issue, it is true that in many situations, a change of diet or dietary modifications, alterations, or the use of nutraceuticals can actually benefit your cat and can help them cope with some conditions in a better way. But there are some diseases or some conditions where you simply cannot go about changing their diet without first consulting their veterinarian. The most common example is a surgical procedure called anastomosis of the intestines, where basically part of the intestine is not functional. So what a veterinary surgeon would do is go in, remove the part that's not functional, and join the remaining parts that are functional. But within the small intestine, different regions are responsible for absorbing different kind of nutrients. So depending on what was removed from your cat's body in terms of their intestine or their surgical history or their medical history, they may not be able to process certain ingredients as efficiently as they would from a very specific prescription diet. Essentially, if your cat has a medical condition, a general rule of thumb is to always consult your veterinarian before transitioning their diet. And this is true whether you want to put them on a commercial diet or whether or not you want to put them on a homemade raw diet or any kind of diet, actually. All transitions should ideally be discussed with your veterinarian first. Another scenario where you would want to reconsider or have serious input from a veterinary nutritionist or an animal nutritionist is if your cat is still a kitten. Now, kittens grow extremely rapidly, so their metabolic needs are actually remarkably high compared to adult cats. In fact, though it may look like the kitten is smaller, they can at times end up eating more food than an adult cat and not actually putting on fat. Like they will not be unhealthy. They actually need all these nutrients to grow. So they may either be put on very energy dense diets several times a day, or they may just have a baseline higher requirement for energy. And sometimes with homemade diets, what happens is if you're not updating your nutrition or you're not updating your portions regularly, in some cases on a weekly basis, you can end up with a diet that's deficient for your kitten. So it might be sufficient for them when they're, let's say, 2 months old, but the same diet in the same amount might be causing nutrient deficiencies when they are 3 months old. And sometimes the nutritional deficiencies can set in at much shorter intervals as well. So the key takeaway is with kittens specifically, we often recommend waiting before transitioning them to an homemade diet or a raw diet or any diet that is, intended for an adult animal, which is what most homemade diets are. There are diets that are made for kittens that are, raw homemade diets, but such diets often require very frequent checkups with your veterinarian or your nutritionist, and definitely not something you should just go and do on a whim because you wish well for your cat. Yes, we all wish well for our pets, but sometimes we may not know what is best for them. Finally, another scenario to consider where you would not want your cat on a raw diet is if you have cultural or religious reasons as to why there cannot be any meat in your house, specifically raw meats. Goes without saying that cats cannot be vegan or vegetarian. So if you do have a cat, but you for personal reasons are opposed to, the consumption of meat, whether it be cultural reasons, religious reasons, or even health reasons for some individuals, your cat would still want, rather specifically need, a meat-based diet, specifically animal meat-based diet. However, some people are opposed to having raw meats in their house. So in such a scenario, it is still considered perfectly fine and acceptable to have your cat on a commercial diet as long as it is one made specifically for cats and one that is considered complete and balanced for your cat's specific life stage. And with that, we come to the end of today's video, guys. We covered the main scenarios where you would not want your cat to transition to a raw or a homemade cooked diet. Of course, there are other scenarios as well, which we'll probably touch base on in the coming videos. But in today's video specifically, we wanted to cover the main scenarios where you might want to reconsider before transitioning your cat to such a diet. As always, this is your friendly reminder to please do hit that subscribe button. It really helps us. Please do leave us a like and we welcome your comments. For now, this is me, Dr. Luqman, signing off, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.